Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Catherine Arizin. I'm the community manager at Animatron, and this is Dmitry Skavish, Animatron's co-founder. Animatron is a Cambridge-based startup, though we are based in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the US, not here in the UK. We've been developing for about 5 years, so today we'll be talking about dynamic text effects in HTML5 and SVG. Let's take a look at the agenda. We'll start by talking a little bit about Animatron, the architecture of the tool, and different export formats available. We'll discuss fonts and typography in general, move on to downloadable fonts, and we'll finish with a demo of dynamic text effects within Animatron itself. So to start, we'll give you a brief overview of Animatron and show you how it works. Animatron is a browser-based visual animation authoring tool. We built it to make designing animated and interactive content accessible to everyone, so less complex software. It's all HTML5, so no Flash, no plugins, and since it's browser-based, users can work collaboratively with others in real time on one project. So the tool allows users to bring together images, vector graphics, audio, text, to combine everything and create visual stories. Animatron consists of 4 components. The first one is the authoring tool, the editor itself. It's a browser-based application which allows users to create animated content directly there in Chrome, for example, which we'll be using today. The editor is written in Java and translated into JavaScript using Google Web Toolkit. Our backend handles all server-side code, dealing with authentication requests, collaborative editing, rendering to GIF and video, etc. The backend's written in Scala. Our player is a piece of JavaScript code that plays the animations created in Animatron. The player is open source and available for forking on GitHub. When we put the slides up later, the link is live so you guys can check it out. And finally, the website. The editor resides within the website, and the website is where you can see all of your projects, the projects of others. You can like and comment on projects, and the website's written in Scala and AngularJS. So now let's take a look at the tool itself. You have to switch out for a second. So this is the editor itself, running in Chrome at the moment. And Dimitri's going to draw a little kitten for us using the vector drawing tools. Those are on the left-hand side of the screen. Starts with an oval, use direct selection. Now make the head. You can zoom in to see what you're doing a little bit more closely. Add some nodes along the circle. And then with the selection tool, pull up the nodes to give the kitten some ears. And last but not least, a little tail for the kitten. And there we go. So group it all together, and there it is. Maybe make it a little smaller. There we go. Okay, so now we have our kitten, and to add some animation, Dimitri will use the pen tool to draw a path that the kitten will follow. Okay, so there's the path. If you select it, make a copy, then select the kitten, use the snap to path option, and the animation is created right there. So you can delete the original curve so that the path will be invisible. Let's take a look. Maybe it should move a little faster. So we can adjust the time band here in the timeline. And the kitten seems a little bit more lively now. So let's take a look at the published clip of this project. So here's the clip in a new window. What you're seeing here is HTML5 canvas being rendered by our JavaScript-based player. We can also open up the JSON file that was created when we published the project, and all of the animation that takes place in the project is coded into this file. So now we can go back and export the same project to SVG. The file is downloaded, and here it is. And we can also take a look at the SVG source code of the animation. So this is a very simple project, obviously, but larger and more complex projects can be exported in the exact same way. So for example, here's a project on our website called Ninja. No. So let's open the project in the editor. That's the published clip, and here is kind of the guts of the project, so to speak. And if you look over here to sort of take a look at the components that put together the project, it's created with multiple scenes. So you can play one scene each at a time. And you can see the animation moving just by scrolling, moving the playhead back and forth along the timeline. So now we can export the project. And here it is playing in a separate window. So you can take this, use the embed code, and put it directly into your website or your blog. For example, if you look at the Animatron landing page, the graphic here at the top was created in Animatron and embedded directly into the site. And if you scroll down, these icons are animated, and they were also created in Animatron. So it's really easy to embed everything into a website. Now I'm going to turn things over to Dmitry, who's going to give you some more details about the different export and publishing options.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Dmitry. Thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to speak at Graphical Web. It's really great to be in this old, charming city. The round table was alone was worth the trip, actually. So okay, Animatron allows you to publish to several different formats: video, animated GIFs, our own JSON-based format, which we call HTML5, and SVG. Just recently, we added support for animated SVG with smile animations. Let's look at how we just briefly go over how we export to each format. For video and GIF, it's pretty similar. We just play the animations on our backend on the server side. and we record every frame as images, and then we just stream the images to FFmpeg to encode to video. And for GIF we use similar technique, but we use different library. We don't use FFmpeg, we use GIF4j. Our main publishing option, of course, is our JSON format. We call it HTML5 simply because everything you need to play it is basically a HTML5 compliant browser. How it works, we export our animation model to JSON, and then it's played by our JavaScript player. The player creates a bunch of HTML5 canvases and renders the animation on the canvases. And for audio, we use Web Audio API in the browser. So we use two HTML5 API, Canvas and audio, Web Audio. And recently, yeah, we added support for SVG and Smile. It's great, actually. It works almost everywhere except Internet Explorer. That's the biggest downside of Smile animations. You may ask why we created our own format when we could use SVG or even CSS animations. The reason we didn't go all the way with SVG is, for example, that reason, because SVG is not supported across all the browsers. I mean, animations are not supported. Static SVG, yes, but not animation. But anyway, let's go over all the pros and cons of every format. I'm going to look at the size, browser support, readability, and performance. Size. Both SVG and CSS animations, they tend to be a little bit verbose. At least comparing to our format. On average, Animatron JSON 2-3 times smaller or even less than comparable SVG. But you need to have a player to play Animatron JSON, and it adds 100K. So for small animations, SVG wins in size. For medium to big one, Animatron is more compact. And the reason actually we created our own format, it was one of the reasons because we wanted to compete with Flash. And Flash, of course, has binary format. It's pretty compact. So our JSON, well, it's not binary, but it's actually comparable in size to Flash. Browser support. Again, our player works everywhere, on every browser with HTML5 canvas, which means virtually any browser right now. And SVG works everywhere except Internet Explorer. Our format is not readable at all. I mean, I guess if you have some experience, you can understand something, but it's like binary. But SVG, I mean, quite a few people create SVG and CSS animations by hand. Actually, that's the dominant way to create animation in SVG, CSS. So, but it works usually only for small animations. For medium to large one, it becomes really unmanageable. Just lots of information. It's really hard to edit all those paths and shapes and transitions by hand. So you need some tool. Okay, in terms of performance, actually, by our experiments, it's more or less the same. it depends on the project and depends on what kind of animation you do. We found that if you do animations with images, like animate images on the screen and stuff, SVG is pretty slow, surprisingly. I don't know why. But vector graphic, vector shapes, they tend to be on par across all the formats. The huge difference between Animatron player and like SVG and CSS animations in terms of performance is that with our player we control everything and we can optimize all use cases, and we do. So in the end, tends to be more. I mean, we can squeeze every bit of performance from it. So I'll get back to Catherine. She's gonna talk about fonts in Animatron and text effects.
So now that you have an idea of how everything works, let's talk about what all of this has to do with fonts and kinetic typography. As we all know, fonts are an incredibly important aspect of visual communication. So fonts and animation can work well together to tell a story, like this excerpt from Pulp Fiction. Oops. Sorry. You see where I'm going?
I'm here to help. If my help's not appreciated, lots of luck, gentlemen. No, Mr. Wolf. It ain't like that. Your help is definitely appreciated.
Mr. Wolf, listen. I don't mean disrespect, okay? I respect you. I just don't like people barking orders at me, that's all.
If I'm Kirkwood, it was because time is a factor. I think fast, I talk fast, and I need you guys to act fast if you want to get out of this. So, pretty please, with sugar on top, clean the fucking car.
Or here's an example of where font choice can completely overtake the story that you're trying to tell. CERN's infamous choice of Comic Sans to announce their groundbreaking Higgs-boson findings a few years ago maybe distracted from the original point. And sometimes font choice can be downright disastrous, like in these examples. So fonts are important. I hope you guys believe me. And one of the major building blocks of design and communication is typography. But even though there are thousands of different fonts in the world, only a handful of them are supported in all browsers and across all operating systems. So whether or not a non-standard font will display correctly on a user's screen has to do with whether or not that user has that font installed on their local machine. Of course, designers can't control this, so there's no guarantee of consistency. So here's our solution to the problem of non-standard fonts. Animatron allows users to make use of open standard downloadable fonts like Google Fonts or Adobe Typekit. Users can also upload fonts directly to the editor, where they'll be stored on our servers and included in the published project. This guarantees that in the final product, the text will display more or less consistently across all browsers and operating systems. So I say more or less because unfortunately, the reality is that even with downloadable fonts, different browsers render them slightly differently. This is especially true for HTML5 Canvas, which has very, very poor support for text rendering. Basically, the only information about text that you can obtain from the Canvas API is its width. No ascent, no descent, not even text height. Don't get me started on other metrics. That's all there is. So to some extent, we can alleviate this problem by converting the text to shape outlines and rendering the shapes identically across all browsers and operating systems. This may not work for all use cases, but for some, it's the perfect solution. For example, if you don't need to present lots of textual data, then using shaped outlines instead of downloadable fonts has several advantages. There's less assets to download. You have pixel-perfect rendering and no problem with browsers. Like some browsers don't support certain TTF fonts, so you can avoid that problem entirely. And another advantage with working with shape outlines is that we can do all sorts of really cool stuff with these shapes. So once we have them, we can explode the text, squeeze it, morph, trace, convert to 3D. Whatever you can dream of, you can do it once you have the shapes. So this brings us to text effects. So now Dimitri will type on the canvas. Since we're all here at the Graphical Web Conference in Winchester, UK, let's start here. And this isn't really the right font though. So let's go over to the text inspector and we'll select Righteous, which is a Google font. Adjust the text size a little bit. And then you can choose the color, add some shadow. Cool. So now that the text is ready, we'll select it and look at the available effects in the text inspector. So these are the effects that we have right now. Fair warning, text effects are still in very early days in Animatron. We've just released it very, very recently. So everything's somewhat basic at the moment. In the future, we'll have a lot more text effects and presets. So when you select an effect, you'll notice that you have a preview at the bottom of the inspector panel. So you can see what it'll look like in runtime before you actually apply the effect to your text on the canvas. So now the effect is there. Cool. And we'll create another layer. And to remind us all of the date, we'll type 2014. Just like we did before, we'll change the color, add some shadow. And set the font to the same. So we'll choose a different effect this time. Click Apply. Cool, but we want 2014 to show up at the end of the graphical web animation. So we adjust the time band along the bottom so that that layer only appears at the end of the first animation. Cool. So let's publish the project to HTML5. And here it is in a new window. And we'll look at it in SVG as well. In the future, these dynamic text effects can also be combined with predefined interactivity effects. So, for example, we could have the graphical web animation begin on mouse over or with the input of a certain key, something like that. We can automatically sync the effects to audio playing in the background, all sorts of other cool stuff. So, to wrap up, that's basically all we have for today. We've designed the user interface of these features to give anybody the opportunity to use dynamic text effects and interactivity in their project. No coding knowledge is required, and the runtime ability allows users to see exactly what their text will look like just by typing in their content. And since we're offering publishing options in HTML5 and SVG, we hope that users will be able to spread their content across the modern web in all of the browsers that support, which more and more is adding every day. And here's our team. Dima, do you want to?
Yes.
So this is all of us working on it in various locations around the world. We're actively developing and providing new features and functionality basically every day. So if you guys have any suggestions or ideas for things that you'd like to see in the tool, please get in touch with us. You can email feedback@animatron.com. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook. You can reach us via smoke signals, however you please. We would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. I don't think so.
I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, so do we have any questions? Who'd like to go first? Alex.
I'm just wondering, for IE support, have you considered using a Smile JavaScript shim to actually just use that and additionally test for IE and then just use JavaScript to run the animation?
We consider actually eventually support SVG in IE one way or another, but we don't know yet how we're gonna do it.
What about the web animations polyfill? Should try that.
But what?
Do you know about web animations? So web animations 1.0 is an attempt to unify animation in the browser for HTML and SVG, and it's currently native in Chrome. Firefox is implementing it as well, and there is quite a small polyfill that will let you animate in basically everywhere. So
It's interesting.
something to look at.
I never heard of it. Okay, okay. Okay.
I think we have this working now. Who's up next? Brian.
Hello. I thought that was a really good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
With regards to SVG support, apart from browser support, were there any other challenges in terms of performance or missing features?
Well, to tell you the truth, we just added SVG just before this conference, SVG support, like 1 week ago. I mean, we still have some projects which don't play well with SVG, so we're still looking into the issues. So it's very early to say, but I mean, we already know that for some reason images are really slow to animate in SVG. That's one thing. Other than that, it's still early.
Hi. Actually, two questions. The first one is, have you considered adding the possibility to edit animations on top of videos, like synchronized with the videos?
It's coming.
It's definitely planned.
Yes.
For the quite near future, I'd like to hope.
Yep. I'm too.
And the second question is about streaming. Have you considered like formats for streaming your stuff?
Yes, actually, the format, our JSON format, actually designed to support streaming. It hasn't been done yet on the player side, on the client side, but it's there. It's kind of similar actually to how it's done in Flash.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there's an effort that W3C made to write a specification about SVG streaming, so how you can stream SVG animations on the web.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
If you're interested.
have to check it out.
Very good presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you would like to add some support for interactivity, but have you considered adding some scripting language, like if you wanted to compete with Flash for like more comprehensive interactivity support?
Yes. Actually, in fact, we already have some support for interactivity. Basically, you can add any kind of, okay, it's not here. You can script your animations using just regular JavaScript. And our player has it's not has API. It's not the same as Flash API, but I mean more or less similar. There are objects, clips. You can transform them, add twins and stuff like that. The thing is, I mean, what we have right now, we are recreating it almost from scratch. I mean, in terms of the API. So it's possible to add some interactivity even now, but it's going to be obsolete in several weeks. It's already done. We're just in the final testing phase. Yes. So if you want to draw any parallels with Flash, then Flash has ActionScript, and in Animatron you use just regular JavaScript to provide some logic. Anything else?
Any more questions? Well, I think it's a very impressive looking tool. Thank you for showing it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.